Well, the Texas legislative session is over. There will not be a special session, so that means what's done is done. So for conservatives, what do you have to cheer about? Hey everybody, I'm Chad Hasty, host of the Chad Hasty Show, which airs weekday mornings 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. I encourage you to go back and listen to two interviews that I had on the Tuesday edition of the Chad Hasty Show. One with Matt Mackowiak, Republican strategist, who really laid out the frustration that the conservative grassroots have right now with Republican leadership, with the leadership in the state, Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, and House Speaker Dennis Bonnen. Because a lot of conservative activists and a lot of conservative voters and grassroots folks do not think this was a particularly good session for conservative legislation. I also encourage you to go back and listen to my interview with Scott Braddock. Scott Braddock, editor of Quorum Report, really laid out everything that happened in this session, where we're going from here into the upcoming primary season and general election, and then why the next session will not be a kumbaya session at all because of redistricting. So I encourage you to go back and watch those two videos. My thoughts on this session, it's really a mixed bag. I think for conservatives, there's a lot to look at with this session and go, well, that's really disappointing. Let's be honest here, okay? School finance, that's great. That's wonderful. But guess what? The folks who hated Republicans and ran campaigns and ran editorials and commercials and attacked Republicans on social media with this whole hashtag block vote type of deal, who said that Republicans hated teachers and hated education, they're still going to say those things about Republicans. Republicans put a lot of money into school finance and a lot of money they're going to have to account for into the future that they don't have a revenue source of right now. So Republicans have a lot of work to do, but I think they threw money into school finance, one, because they probably had to, but two, because they wanted to satisfy some of the teacher groups that are out there that have traditionally been against the Republicans, like Governor Greg Abbott, the Lieutenant Governor, and the Speaker, and others. The problem is you're never going to satisfy left-leaning groups. It's just not going to happen, and if you're hoping that was going to happen in this session, I'm sorry. I've already seen it on social media where some of these groups are saying that Republicans in the Senate still hate teachers, even though Republicans put more money into education than anyone really anticipated. So you have that. And even if you're for school finance, putting more money into the school finance system, even if you're all on board, great, wonderful. Okay, fine. That's a win. Property tax reform, I think that's another win long term, but the short-term property tax relief, while, yeah, you're going to see a little bit of relief in your bill, is not overwhelming property tax relief. Those folks who are being taxed out of their homes right now, saving an extra $200 is not going to save their homes. What Texans want is true property tax relief, and we did not see that happen in this session. We saw reform, and I think it's very important what we saw, and I think it's very good what we saw on the property tax reform front. But it is not overwhelming property tax relief, which is what most Texans wanted. Now, when it comes to some of the conservative or not so conservative victories out there, Republicans, and Matt Mackowiak was absolutely right on this, Republicans really left a lot on the table. You did not see the state of Texas and the Republicans here in Texas lead on the issue of pro-life. You didn't see it. Alabama is leading on the issue of pro-life. In fact, Missouri is leading on the issue of pro-life. According to Axios, Florida and South Carolina are also considering their own fetal heartbeat bills similar to Alabama's. Louisiana is close to passing one as well, and there are going to be other states that do this too. Republicans never even sniffed what Alabama did. And it was because, as Mackowiak and both Scott Braddock brought up, leadership didn't want to fight. They didn't want any contentious issues out there. Taxpayer-funded lobbying, a ban on that, something that is a slam dunk issue. Texas Public Policy Foundation says about 91% of Texans across the board want to end taxpayer-funded lobbying, guess what? It died in the legislative session. Election reform, ballot integrity, that died during the Texas legislative session, and other issues as well that were very important for conservatives. And in a state that is changing by the day, changing by the year, I think Republican voters wanted a little bit of fight out of lawmakers in this session. And we didn't see that. Speaker Dennis Bonnen, who I've had on my show numerous times, who I respect, he's quoted by one outlet taking some swipes at the pro-life organizations out there. I think he went too far. I don't know if he meant to insult all the pro-life organizations out there, but it came across that way. The speaker also in the Dallas Morning News telling folks that we wanted to agree, we wanted to have a atmosphere where we could have disagreement but be polite to each other and handshakes and all this kind of stuff. People don't want that. And right now, I think Republican voters in the Trump era, whether you like Trump or not, whether you like the way Trump goes about things, Republican voters want a fighter. They want people who are going to go out and punch the Democrats in the face and say, hey, you know what? This state may turn blue. We better take what we can get right now. And the Republicans didn't do that. The Republicans really wanted to make sure they got the big issues passed, property tax reform and school finance reform passed, and they really didn't care about much else, it seems. They didn't really have another priority after school finance and property tax reform. And I understand those were two big issues that took up a lot of oxygen in the room. But you still had other things to do. You still had other things you could have done. And in the next session, which is expected to be very highly contentious, if Republicans remain in control of the House, that's what's going to take up so much time is redistricting. You're not going to have time to get to all these other issues, or you're going to trade those issues for redistricting type of issues. So this was really a loss, I think, for a lot of conservative principles, a lot of conservative pieces of legislation. Again, a mixed bag as far as the results go. I think property tax reform, great, wonderful. That's fantastic. Even school finance, as long as it's done the right way and as long as the money goes into the classroom and into the teachers and for the students, no problem at all there. But when it comes to other conservative pieces of legislation, I think this was a ho-hum type of legislative session, a go along to get along type of legislative session, and maybe we're entering a new era for Texas Republicans down in Austin, the get-along era down in Austin, which means we don't want to upset too many people. We don't want to we don't want to scare away moderates. We don't want to scare away moderate Republicans and have them join the Democrats. We want to survive to the next election. And that's what it seems like Republicans did in this session. They're in survival mode. And it's hard to break out of survival mode if you think Texas is going to go blue in the next few years or within the next 10 years. So Republicans, I would say we're going to have a poll on this on KFYO.com. If I had to give a grade for this session, probably a B-, maybe a C+. Again, I think the things that they did were very good, but I think they left a lot on the table that should have gotten done during this legislative session. Tune in to the Chad Hasty Show, weekday mornings 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time, News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM, KFYO.